In this video we will look at the proactive events for Amazon Alexa skills. Normally when users interact with Alexa, they perform this in the form of request, respond, question, answer. Proactive events lets Alexa skill services notify the user about some events they interested in. This tutorial will be also published on the Medium. For quick introduction, I prepared the short video presentation. Let's look at this when you have time. And it quickly introduces what is Alexa and proactive events. In this tutorial we would need to create simple Alexa skill and AWS Lambda function. For this purpose I created the article on the Medium and video tutorial as well. So please follow these instructions and video to build the simple Amazon Alexa skill and a Lambda function for this skill. We will slightly extend it within this tutorial to support proactive events API. I will create the such simple Alexa skill and Lambda function quickly. For details, please refer to this article and video tutorial. I'll start with creating the Alexa. When we created this skill and connected to Lambda as well, we can navigate to permissions and find that there are such list of different permissions. We will see the new section here later on. Currently I'm creating the Lambda function. In this tutorial there is the source code on the GitHub. I'll take the whole code. Then we can build this code to the jar file with the task jar. And upload this to Lambda function. Don't forget to change the handler. Then we navigate to intent and build the model. Alexa skill should be ready. Now we will enable the skill. We can do this in the web dashboard or in the mobile application. Skills, your skills, developer skills. This new skill, it is disabled now and we don't have any specific permissions. We hit enable and it would be ready to be used. Let's check the Lambda with the test configure using Alexa start session test. Looks good. To be able to receive the proactive events we need to modify skills manifest, and currently it can be done only with the ask command line tool, so we need to install this. Follow this instruction. This is how it can be installed, and then we need to initialize it. Then we would be guided through the process of setting up those credentials, and we can change something, create new profile, use existing profile. So we can create new profile, and then we would be rerouted to the login page. And here we need to log in with this user which we are going to use, and then we can close this page. And in the terminal we can see some information what was created. Details we recorded within this file. CLI config need to associate AWS profile with command line tool, and we definitely want this. And within which profile we use created profile and then we would get this information: ESC profile default, AWS profile, ESC command line interface default, and some vendor ID. Currently we should have access to our infrastructure over ESC tool. For example, we can get the status of this Alexa skill. For skill, and here we need to put the skill ID, and skill ID we can find from this URL path, and in endpoint it is this one, so we just can copy it, hit enter, and if skill is correct we will get the response success, and as we can see we have the access to this skill. And the next step would be to get the manifest of the skill. It's again would be a request to the same API, not the status API, get skill and the same skill ID, and it would give us the JSON file which we need to change and upload. So we put it to some file, and we need to open it in one of our favorite editors. I can open it in Visual Studio Code. This manifest we have these APIs and point to our Lambda function, and we have publishing information and supported locales. Currently it is English US, and the name for the skill. Then we need to decide which proactive events we want to send. Currently there is a following list of the events, and each of them have own structure. It has its own list of properties, and the request format as the JSON, what has specific properties. But some of the properties are general for all those requests. In this tutorial I selected the media content. Media content notifies the user about some media event which is given by the provider of this content. It has some distribution method, stream, air, etc. The content itself, name of the content, and the type of the content. Those properties are created particularly for this event type, also known as schema type. And localized attributes are attributes which can be created for different locales. For example, in localized attributes property we specify locale. In this case this is US, and provider name would look like this, and content name looks like this. And for different locales we can alter those properties. And for the this structure has a root property event, the particular schema type, and within the payload we have those specific properties. This is not all properties, and one of them is provider, and the name is not specified as the text, but it is reference to localized attribute provider name property. And the same we can use on different text properties. We have content, for example, with the name, and name we supposed to find here. Let's use this event type, and we can add more than one event type or event schema which is accepted by the Alexa skill. To do so, we need to add this information about events to the events property with the publications list. And it also required to put endpoint for handling this, and it would be Lambda function IRN, and it can be the same Lambda function used for Alexa skill. Technically we can take it from the API section, and we can take it from the Lambda function. Next step would be to add permission. So we need these Alexa devices all notifications right. The only permission, and then we can save the JSON file with the modifications, switch to the terminal, and then we should update the skill. The same skill with the same ID, and from the file skill JSON, hit enter, and if everything is fine within this JSON file, we will get this message. And if you want, we can again get this skill status, which we already did before. This one status command, and we see success. This means that currently skill is allowed to work with the proactive event, particularly with media content event. Then we can navigate to the Alexa dashboard and open the permissions tab. And if we scroll down, we would see this new section which I mentioned earlier. And this would be Alexa skill, client ID and client secret, which we would need to send events over the HTTP client. Now we can try to test our skill with HTTP client, and it can be technically any HTTP client. For example, Postman, CURL, HTTP client plugin built into IntelliJ IDEA. And before we start sending the first request, we need to open the Alexa skill management console in the browser or in the mobile application. Your skills, dev, simple Alexa skill. We would see now the settings button here, and we see that this skill needs permission to access Alexa notifications. This is new after we allowed those notifications. So we navigate to settings, hit the manage permissions, and then we see that a simple Alexa skill requesting following permits. This is a list of skill permits. This permit allows the skill to send you a notification which you can retrieve by asking Alexa, what are my notifications? So this way we would request for notifications. It's not all devices support sounds and lights, and notifications doesn't come, for example, on the Alexa mobile client. So we turn it on, save permissions, and now we allow the notifications to be sent to our device. To send the request, we need to perform two steps. First, we need to request the bearer token, and this token would expire in 1 hour. Then we can use this token to send requests which initiate the notifications. Let's start with this procedure. Open the Postman, create the new tab, switch the type of the request to post, use this URL, and now we need to put to our headers key value pair content type, and it would be form URL encoded. And in the body we will use this option which is specified in the headers, form encoded, and we need to put 4 keys here. Second would be client ID, which is client ID of the Alexa skill. So navigate to Alexa skill dashboard, copy client ID and put it as the value for this key. Next would be client secret. And again, client secret is here. Click show and copy it. And the last one would be scope. So now we have the URL. This is post. In the headers we have content type as 3W form URL encoded. In body we have the client ID, client secret for the particular Alexa skill. And then we hit send. And as the response we would get this JSON with access token, which is the one which we need to be used as a barrier token. It starts with ATC pipe and then some long text scope, which the one which we specified, and it is barrier token, and it would expire after 1 hour. After 1 hour we need to request another token if we want to proceed with the further requests, and it would be given the response 403 for the requests when it would be expired. We need to copy this access token to the header of the new request, and for new request we should use one of these 6 endpoints. They split to 2 groups, production and development. And in the development we can play with our testing environment and send the requests which would be not transferred to real customer. Each environment is split on 3 different areas, I would say: North America, Europe and Far East, and this is the small difference. And stages development is all for the development and doesn't exist here. So we can use this. And the reason I chose the North America endpoint that Alexa is created for US and it has the endpoint within US East 1, which is particularly North Virginia. You can see it here. And our Lambda function is created within this. And if you want to work with different regions and areas, you need to use the different Lambda functions located in these three more options. One for North America, one for Europe, and one for Far East. Currently we work with only one. I chose this endpoint and create new tab. Switch type of the request to post. Pass this URL to the address. Open the headers and content type as the key and application JSON as the value. And another key would be authorization, where we should put the word barrier and space, and it would be followed by the token which we received on the previous step. Barrier space. Switch back to the tab with the token, copy it, double check that we have space here and paste this token here. We can do the same with the bulk edit. So it would be content type, column, application JSON, authorization, barrier, space, and this token. And next step would be to put the JSON content of the event to the body. This is an example of this event. We have this template which has minimum properties, and this a little bit extended. We switch to body, select row and JSON options, pass this text. All datetime values are ISO 8601. Reference ID is the unique ID of this particular event. Expiry time when the event is expired, and it should be within 24 hours period and not earlier than 5 minutes from now. Name of the event, media available, and this would be payload with properties of this particular event. Each event would have its own set of properties. Particularly this event has availability property which has the start time value. This is date time. Here you can see this is UTC, but when it would be pronounced with a correction to different time zone. As I understand, this corresponds to the Alexa skill area or language default area. I'm not 100% sure how it is defined. Provider, this is what the organization, for example, or the business provide this information, or the whatever provide this information. So currently it is set to localized attribute, provider name. In the localized attribute section we have this Alexa events example. This is the provider. We can put anything we want. The method of distribution of this media event would be air. Content of the event also has the name put to the localized attributes. This one. So we can specify this would be. This is just a text. It has its own particular content types. This one I select episode. It can be different. Book, episode, album, single, etc. The method would be stream, air, release, premiere, drop. We can create different set of attributes, for example, for Germany, France, UK, etc. The last section is the relevance audience. Currently it has type multicast. It means that it will be broadcast for all users who has this Alexa skill on their devices, and those of them who allow it notification from this Alexa skill, they would get this notification. Another option is unicast. Then we would need to put the user property here, put the user ID. We will cover this later, but currently we'll try with the multicast as the simplest one. We prepared everything, we just need to correct date time. This is timestamp. Timestamp is not such important regarding the time, but it is important regarding uniqueness. We'll talk about this a bit later. But expiry time is important to put the correct. It would be 21, for example. Start time, it would be something which will be announced within the Alexa device. This is unique instance. For example, it would be instance 1. It can be any text or white or whatever. I have the device here. When I hit the send, and if everything correct, the device would get the notification and make the sound and start blinking. Then I can request notifications. As we see, we got this notification and blinking light. The status of the request is 202 accepted. It doesn't have any body, content length is 0. If we would get some error, like for something, we would get the body with the message about the error. So let's try to request the notification from the device. Alexa, what are my notifications?
One new notification from Simple Alexa skill. Test event for Alexa Proactive API will air on June 11, 2019, 4 p.m. EDT on Alexa Events example.
Flashing light is disappeared and the event is archived for some period, some hours. We can send this event again, but it's supposed to have a unique reference ID. It would be different event, or it would be the same event if we would change the timestamp to something else. For example, we want to update this event with some updated information. For example, it would be different text or different time corrected. Let's try to send different event, and it would be the same text, for example. And let's send it. Okay, we got it. Now it would pronounce this test event, but we thought maybe we have the case when it should be corrected. For example, to 2. Then we would get just different timestamp, but with the same reference, and try to send again. Then let's check out what do we have on our device. Alexa, what are my notifications?
One new notification.
It is 1.
From Simple Alexa skill. Test event 2 will air on June 11, 2019, 4 p.m. EDT on Alexa Events example.
I'm not sure about you, but I am not such easy understand what the device is saying such quickly. And we can try to repeat it from the archive. To do so, there is a phrase with the word old. Alexa, what are my old notifications?
Here are your archived notifications. 2 from Simple Alexa skill. Test event 2 will air on June 11, 2019, 4 p.m. EDT on Alexa Events example. Test event for Alexa Proactive API will air on June 11, 2019, 4 p.m. EDT on Alexa Events example.
As you can see, it updates the event which was not read yet. Reference ID tells this is the same event. Timestamp tells it is updated version of the event. But uniqueness of the event is reference ID and the relevant audience. Next, it would be how we could delete those events. To delete it, there is a phrase, Alexa, delete all my notifications.
Delete all your notifications, right?
Yes.
Okay, deleted your notifications.
Alexa, what are my old notifications?
No archived notifications.
When we delete notifications, it also deletes archived notifications, but it also deletes received but not read notifications. Let's try it again. Let's create another notification. Alexa, delete all my notifications.
Delete all your notifications, right?
Yes.
Okay, deleted your notifications.
And delete the current notification as well. We can send multiple notifications. For example, it would be Alexa Events example. This would be, for example, to receive it. And then let's suppose we have totally different notification from different media provider. Notification would be, let's assume it is published new episode over the radio. And we have 2 notifications. Let's read it. Alexa, what did I miss?
2 new new notifications. 2 from simple Alexa skill. New book will air on June 11, 2019, 4 p.m. EDT on John Smith provider. 123 will air on June 11, 2019, 4 p.m. EDT on Alexa events example.
We have two notifications from the same skill, but from different provider and with different content. And apparently the type can be different. So now we know how to send, how to receive, how to request those notifications, how to delete it. Let's look at some errors, what can be wrong. For example, if we would put wrong date in the expiry time, we would get this message. Metadata expiry time should be at least 5 minutes and within 24 hours. So this is what I mentioned before. Also, we can put different wrong method, for example. We would get this quite complex message that can be corrected. Actually, those characters can be replaced with the not escaped. Let's open it in some editor. If we replace, for example, replace, if we use this regular expression option, we can put double quote on here, replace everything. We can replace this one with the new line and actually escape it. It would be like this and it would be new line. And then we would get this message more readable. We found that schema validation didn't pass. What was the level? It was error. Instance was the method within the payload. enum was wrong. The value was such, but the enum actually has such values. So if we put something like this, it would be correct. Also, if we would put here instead of the correct provider name something ABC, for example, we don't need to change this all the time. It is actually quite readable. So availability provider name is wrong, keyword ABC, enum, localize it, didn't like this. We can put this not UTC time, but we can put this with shift, and it would be considered according to this shift time as well. Now we can touch a quite tricky question. What if you want to send this event to the particular user? Then we should change the type of relevant audience from multicast to unicast. In the payload, we should put user ID as the user property. But where could we get this user ID? And user ID is sent with each request the Alexa skill received. We can find it within the test, for example. And here in the test, you can see there is the test structure which of the request, which has the session and it has the context sections. If there is no session during the conversation within the Alexa skill, it would be no this section here. We can get the user from the context system user property, and it would be user ID, something like this, plus some long text here. How could we get this? There is an option to do this when the Alexa skill receives the request from the voice, but it is not enough because we also need to find out if the user actually turn on the notification. There is the option to track such events. Particularly, there is the event to track the proactive subscription change activity. To track this event, we need again to modify the skill manifest. We need to add this subscription ID property within the events property. Come back again to the manifest which we edited before. Within the events property, we add this subscriptions with event name skill proactive subscription change. Save, switch to terminal, update the skill from the same file. Looks good, and this is how it would look not good. Thanks to validation, we would get this notification about something wrong. Maybe there is no comma here. We will be notified. And if we are not sure if it is correct or not currently, we always can request for status of the get skill. What can we do with this subscription? We can create the request handler for particular requests which would have this type. To do so, we need to create the new request handler in our Lambda function, and we will create the new request handler which would implement existing interface for request handler. It would implement not generic but proactive subscription changed request handler. We will need to implement methods, and I will rename it to a more meaningful name like this. And what is this interface? We can look at this inside. It implements the handling of the particular request type. Default, it also extends the request handler. Its default implementation of can handle, it checks if the handler input has the request which has type proactive subscription changed request. Then it casts this request to this type and calls the can handle custom method with this request type. If we look at the overridden methods, this is the one. So this is particular request handle method also has this as a particular request. And because we have this already, check it that we have this proactive subscription changed request, we just return it true. Here we would need to put the code which would handle this request. Let's look at the what is this request actually about. If we go to the request class itself, it tells that the type of the event is the proactive subscription changed event, and it has some properties: type, request ID, timestamp, etc. The body has a list of subscriptions as the class which has the name of the subscription. Those proactive subscription event contains a list of subscriptions, which is one of those. So we can find out if the proactive event subscription changed, to which of the events it was changed. We can have multiple, we can have one of them, we can have nothing. When there is no event subscribed, so we unsubscribe from everything or just disable the notification, this body would be null. So what we can get from this information, there is the input. We want to get first user ID. We assume so this user ID we can use to send the event to particular user, to show how to get this list of the events. And this is actually list, but you would have to double check that body is not null. So here we would have a list of subscription. Each of them has the name of the event. We can find out to which event the user has been subscribed. Currently we want to find out this user ID. What we can do, we can log it out, and to log it we need to use logging. Logger already specified as dependencies, even find in one of these handlers how this logger can be used. So we need to create the static instance of the logger for this particular class. And then we can start using this logger. Info, error, debug, etc. For example, this one. The same way we can find out what subscription we've got here. This way we will log the user ID, which we can take and use. Also we can see that there is the subscription here, but I would also log that we've got the particular request here. Then we can build it, build the jar file, navigate to the Lambda, hit the upload button, check that this is actually correct file built just now, hit save, and then we can check how it changed those subscriptions. To track this we need to open the CloudWatch find our Lambda function. Those are logs from our Lambda function, which we not interested now. We have the clean log now. To find those events, we should open the Alexa skill dashboard. Find your skill, dev, simple Alexa skill, settings, manage permissions. Now it is turned on. Let's turn it off. Hit save. And I would expect to have the event sent to the skill. It's supposed to run this Lambda function and log this event in the CloudWatch log. Let's see what is within this log. Sometimes we have this unable to find suitable request handler if we did something wrong. It doesn't like unable to find suitable request handler. So let's double check. We have this simple Alexa skill stream handler, which has the custom proactive subscription changed request handler. Alright, it has requests like this, proactive subscription changed, which is correct. When it is received, we've got this true that it can handle. It looks fine. Then we double check if we have this skill proactive subscription changed within the subscription. For such troubleshooting, what I usually do, I'm creating the request handler which handle everything. It also log what did it get. Another option is to get this logged during this validation. Let's log this one. We will see if we actually get here. Let's double check with this new build. And then we go to the Alexa dashboard, change the status of the permissions, and then we go to the log like this. Then let's see what does it tell us. So info handler no subscription. It actually works. It doesn't look like it was not provisioned at Lambda, or it was old version of the jar file. So now we can see if we have this information here. We've got can handle. We've received this request, and the user ID is like this, and subscription is media content available. And second time it was turned off with no subscription. And the reason for this might be because the events come with undetermined order, and we always need to check the timestamp of the event. Let's try it again. Clean the log, turn off permissions, wait while all log entries are propagated within the log. Handle is here, proactive event received, user is here, and no subscription. Let's try to turn it again. Save permissions and wait. Now we have the user ID. We have turned it on the proactive events for this skill, for this user. Now we can check that we received this log. It was turned on. As you can see, we have this subscription for the event. Then we need to get this user ID, copy it, open the Postman, change this with unicast. User ID. Let's check that we have correct expiry time, and it would be different instance, and hit send button. We received this notification. Alexa, what are my notifications?
One new notification from Simple Alexa Skill. New book will premiere on June 11th, 2019, 11 a.m. EDT on John Smith provider.
You might hear this is EDT time actually. We can find out if it is not just a trick. I just put some wrong user ID here and try to send it. We would find this no enablement for client. I also found a similar issue when I put the correct user ID, but I put the barrier token from different Alexa skill. Barrier token was correct, user was correct, but they were not matching. And one more note also we could look at the time, and we most likely already passed this expiry time for the bearer token, but it is still available for probably a reason of development version of this. Now we've got the possibility to send events. We can send different notification types. We can send it to as a broadcast or to particular user. And one more detail: if this user disable this skill and enable it again, this user would get the new user ID. It seems not sufficient to track just this proactive event changed, and it seems we need to track more events. There are 4 events which are responsible for enabling disable skills and accept or change of the permissions. Particularly I'm interested in the skill disabled, because when the skill is disabled by the user, the event with the event change is not sent. But when the skill is enabled, you also need to turn on the proactive event, and as far as I've seen, it is still sent after this. We would need to track this event particularly. We need to have this within our manifest. So we need to subscribe to this particular event. Hit save, update the skill with this manifest. Then we need to create one more handler. Again, it would be skill disabled request handler. And it's pretty similar idea. So we have this already. Check it out. They can handle this particular skill disabled request and return true, because I already check it. And here we can get this user ID the same way as we've got here. And let's rename it. We can put it here, skill quest received. We can use this user ID within this code. So we've got logger, we log that we receive a skill disabled request, receive it, user ID, and then we can put, build it. Navigate to Lambda console and upload. Clean the log. In these skills, again we open the skill, dev skills, simple Alexa skill. Managed notifications on. If we click disable skill, I would expect to receive this notification about changes in the log. Skill disabled received. Now we supposed to unsubscribe internal logic for this user from the events which we will send in the some other routines. If now I would enable it, it would request if I want to turn on all this skill permission. If I turn it on, for example, I would suppose to get this event about turned on proactive event. So this was from previous one, it was user ID, and we can see actually the user ID which starts this way. Now when it is on, it's supposed to have different user ID, and it is. Now this is different user ID. It has subscription available. We also put subscribe to the skill enabled request, but it is not particularly needed here. We can try to send the event again on this old ID. Let's try it again. Send. So it already cleans this user ID. If we would get this new user ID, replace the old one with it and send. We've got new notification here. This is how it works. We found how we subscribe to events. We found how we can track the user ID. We can create the different handlers for every event we handle. As for example, the skill manifest with all those events, and in the GitHub you can find the example with all the events handled by handlers. You can see all those events are handled here. You can use this example for your own evaluation and undrop anything you don't need. For example, permission changed request. It it requires this event. You can get the request body. The request body has accepted permissions. You can get it as the list. It has creation event time and publishing event time and user ID particularly, so you can put some code here. This is pretty much it for introduction to proactive events. Thank you for watching and see you next time.